Hey, welcome into Restaurants in Pop Culture, presented by Squared Sodas. I'm Jensen Cummings. That's MC32. We are coming at you with another episode. We're getting down to it. The very last couple episodes of the Bear season 2.
Hell
We've been
yeah.
rocking with top threes all the way along, and that's been fun. Been learning a lot about Chris, about your style, your
Yeah.
swagger, what you're into. I've been learning about a lot about myself.
Yeah.
Now I've been like, man, I'm feeling a certain era. Like I'm
hmm
stuck in my childhood and adolescence with a lot of these movies I'm feeling. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's something to be said about that. So
Yeah.
hopefully everyone's been having as much fun as we've been having doing the show together. So today we're going to be rocking RIP009. We're talking about the 3 worst diners, customers in movie history. The episode Bolognese, which is episode 8 of season 2 of The Bear, and a little bit of OCD, a little bit of obsessive compulsive disorder I was recognizing in this episode, and it's something that I wanted to touch on with the way that we act in restaurants. There's a lot of little ticks and stuff that I was interested to kind of explore. So Chris and I are going to get into that a little bit as well. Well, let's start as we like to with a little top 3 all-time presented by Tenderbelly. Again, we're going to be talking about some of the worst customers in movie history. So let's see what Shannon Duffy, the co-founder of Tenderbelly, has to say for us today.
Hey everybody, Shannon Duffy here with Tenderbelly. This week we're doing the top 3 worst diners in movie history.
Boy, where was he at, man?
Oh,
He's like
well,
he was like jet setting out there.
yeah.
Uh Worst diners in movie history. All right, man. There's a lot. This was a long list for me starting out, thinking about who are some of the worst customers we've ever seen on screen. We had to
Mhm.
get it down to 3. So let's start. Your number 3. What's your
All
number
right.
3 worst diner of all time?
My number 3 is in Bruce Lee's Way of the Dragon. So there's a scene where this black dude, he's credited as Thug. So I can't even say what the
Number
actor's
3.
name is. Yeah. Um, but him and his crew, they walk into the restaurant, and Jimmy, the server, who's played by Unicorn Chan or whatever, Bruce Lee's childhood best friend, Unicorn Chan. So Jimmy comes up to the table and says, "May I help you?" And the black dude goes, "May you help me?" And it's like horrible dubbed over, and
Oh,
it's like, "May
no.
you help me?" Sure. And he's like putting out a cigarette butt on the tablecloth.
Right.
And then he's like, "I'll have the Chinese spare ribs." And then Jimmy's like, "I don't know what that is." He's like, "You don't know what Chinese spare ribs are? Well, let me show you." And then he turns around and punches him in the ribs. And then, like, his thug number 2 or whatever starts pouring out his drink onto the floor. That causes a scuffle that takes them outside into
Oh,
the
yeah.
alley where the first altercation happens between Bruce Lee and them after Jimmy gets knocked out, first and foremost. But yeah, so that scene struck a chord with me for sure. I remember being a little kid. And that line always like, "Can you help me?" It was so corny, but oh man, but I love that movie.
See, this is what I'm saying. Like, you are heavy into martial arts stuff, right? A
Yeah.
lot of the anime type stuff. A lot
hmm
of crossover between Asian and African American Black culture. Like,
hmm
and dude, I love that. I also love that I just have seen so many movies, thousands and thousands of movies. It's been a big part of my life, and there's so many scenes that you forget until you start telling me, and then they like come back to you, and
Uh-huh.
they like almost remember where you were or what you felt when you saw that. That's the
Yep.
powerful shit about movies that I love. So I'm gonna go with my number 3 is kind of, doesn't have a name of a character either, like Thug number 3. It
hmm
was Bitchy Lady from Waiting,
I knew this
played
was
by
coming. I knew
yeah.
this was coming. I had a fit. I knew this was coming. I actually deliberately omitted this from my list because I knew
You
somehow
just
that
knew
you
I
were
was
gonna.
going with it.
Yeah, I knew you were going with it.
Hey, shout out to Melissa Morgan, did a great job. And here was the line. I'm going to read this. I don't mean to be a bitch, but the last 4 times we've come, the food was awful. Caitlin Doubleday plays the character, right, who has to apologize for that. I'm sorry, we'll try better next time. Yeah, that's what they said last time. And it's like, oh man. I think we all know that customer, but I mean that movie you mentioned is one of the top movies. I think it was like your number 3 maybe of top
Mhm.
kind of restaurant movies of all time. I mean Ryan Reynolds, Anna Faris, Justin Long, Luis Guzman as head chef in that. Dane Cook is in that. So I mean iconic. So I wanted to bring that movie back, and that's just such a Karen. I mean that was Karen before Karen, right?
Yeah.
And that's a big one. So that was number 3 for me. Number 2, what do you got?
All right, number 2. This isn't a movie. This is a TV show, but the show Shameless. So season 2, episode
Love.
5. Oh, sorry, no, season 5, episode 2, entitled "I'm the Liver." There's a scene where Fiona is at the diner, and there's a pair. She's talking to her sister about stuff, and there's this overweight couple that are in there, and they're just Fiona's trying to serve them, and they're nickel and diming her. Like she'll say, "Do you need anything?" And they'll say, and the guy will just be like, "Ketchup," and then she'll go get the ketchup, come back, and then be like, "Butter," and then she'll go get the butter, come back, he'd be like, "Cream," and then he'll go get it and come back. She'll be like, "Is there anything else?" "No." And then she comes back, and they're like, and then they ask for like maple syrup. And then she goes around, comes back around, and they're leaving. They stiffed her on a tip, and she's like, "Excuse me, like, it's customary that if you had good service that you tip at least 15%. That's standard." And the guy's like, "You were slow." And so then she just like goes off on him, and then his wife slaps her for going off on him.
That's right.
And then the manager comes out, and like he's like, whoa, 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 what's going on? And the husband is like, "You're gonna defend this little slut?" And so then manager like puts him up against the wall, basically threatens him and says, "I better not see you walk down this street ever." And then so then they hightail it out of there.
I like that you brought Jeremy Allen White from Shameless. Right. That's where he made his bones. I mean, he's a kid when they started shooting that as Lip Phillip. Yep. Yeah, and that's great. I mean, that is as low as people can get. It feels like, yet somehow they were still lovable characters. And I mean, that was a really, really incredible adaptation. Much like The Office was an adaptation of a British show. Shameless, originally a British show. Shout out to them. I couldn't get into that show, but Shameless, that version with William H. Macy and that cast, they crushed it. That was
and
a good
one thing that I liked about that scene also is that the manager came to the server's aid. So often they fall into the customer's always right tip. The server ends up going back crying. The manager takes the guest's side, and they end up paying out of their wages and stuff. So like seeing a scene where the manager comes to the aid and defense of their servers, I thought that was dope.
In a very shameless way, where they straight up threaten the fucking dude's life.
Yeah, exactly.
No. We appreciate your patronage. Please don't ever come back again. They said, if I see you walking down the street, you're fucking over.
Yeah,
so that's a very shameless way. Okay, that's a great one.
What you got?
Number 2 for me is Super Troopers. Farva. Kevin Heffernan in the Leader of Cola. That is one of my favorite scenes in that movie. It's just a ridiculous scene. It's a pointless scene, yet it is so memorable. It is so timeless. It's so ridiculous. Leader of Cola. And what does he say specifically? I don't know who this. Leader of Cola. Leader is French for give me some fucking cola. Oh man, and Jayesh Chandrasekhar in that is brilliant. The whole crew. I mean, they're absolute fire. I love their early 2000s comedy with their movies and stuff. Beer Fest, another one that I really really appreciated, and their dynamic. But I had to look this guy up. Charlie Finn is the dumpest burger guy, is literally what he's called in that. Is the dude that's on the other side that he ends up jumping over the counter and beating the shit out of. So shout outs to Farva and Leader of Cola as just the worst. And you know what? Right now, I've been seeing a lot of videos. This is why this one finally jumped out at me onto the list, where fast food workers at the counter are getting fucking some
Oh man.
seriously bad
Yeah.
behavior right now. Just
Yeah.
seeing the amount of vitriol and animosity that's happening at that fast food counter right now,
Right. And
like
it's
it's a little
always something
scary for them.
stupid like
It's
I didn't get enough ketchup packets or something, and it's like,
it's always ridiculous.
yeah.
Now, for the flip side of it, I've also seen a lot of
True.
the people on the other side of the counter like lose their shit maybe a couple interaction points before they needed to. Like you could have
Yeah.
diffused that situation, and that customer, you probably went to throwing a soda at them a little too quickly. Like to your point, like we need to start to flip that script a little bit and protect our internal guests more than we've been protecting those external guests, because
Yeah.
it's tough, man. That's a tough job. All right, numero uno, number one for you. Who is the
All right.
absolute worst?
All right. So this is a big one. So this one uh gives you kind of insight, because one thing that we think about when we think about bad customers, a lot of times you're thinking about like the Karens in fine dining restaurants and casual restaurants, but we think about there's another dynamic of bad customers when you're like a small neighborhood spot, which is like the neighborhood knuckleheads, the ones that come in that are like regulars, that just like they give you shit a lot for random things, but they
Talking
still
about a
come in
Waffle
all the
House
time.
here. Right away, I thought of Waffle House, the
Right,
shenanigans of a Waffle
right,
House.
right. So for my number one, I've got Do the Right Thing. I've got a young Giancarlo Esposito, and he's going into Danny Aiello's pizza place, right? And so he's going in there, he's getting his piece, and I mean, like, they're on a first name basis. They know each other. He's getting his slice. He's like razzing him about, why can I get some more cheese on this thing? And Danny's like, it's $2 or whatever, man. So he goes and sits down, and then right before he takes a bite, he's looking on the wall, and he's like, "Hey, yo, Sal, how come there's no black people on this wall?" And then he's like, "Hey, you want to go get you want black people on the wall? Open up your own shop. You can put whoever you want on it. This is an Italian shop. I got only Italian Americans on the wall." So then they start this banter back and forth, and it gets kind of nasty to the point where Sal kicks him out, or Sal tells Mookie to kick him out.
Yep.
Spike Lee's character. So he's, yelling, kicking and screaming down there the whole time. He comes out. So then he spends, as like a side story to this movie, is him going around the hood trying to rally the troops and get people pissed off enough to boycott Sal's. And even as he's getting kicked out, he's like telling people like, boycott Sal's. And so then he goes around, he finds Radio Raheem, gets Radio Raheem pissed off. So then nobody else is really willing to take him up on his cause. But then later on, there's just an already kind of tense conversation going on in the store. And then Giancarlo busts back in with Radio Raheem, and they Fight the Power by Public Enemies playing on the boombox.
Yeah.
And they come in, and there's yelling, and everybody's yelling for different reasons.
Is that Sam Jackson, right?
What's that?
Radio Raheem, is that Sam Jackson?
No. It's Bill Finn, R.I.P.
Okay. Yeah. God, why? I don't know why Sam Jackson just popped into my dome right there.
He was the radio DJ that was
radio DJ. Yeah, that's right.
Kind of narrating the story as it went along. Bill Nunn was his name, not Finn. Bill Nunn, R.I.P.
That's right.
But yeah, so then things get hectic, and everybody's screaming, tensions are high, and then it starts getting racial. And then once the racial stuff comes out, it gets to a tipping point, and then he's like, turn the music. Sal is like, turn it off. So then Radio Raheem puts the boombox on the counter, says, turn it off then. So then Sal grabs the bat and bam, crashes the boombox, and it's like chaos from there.
That's a Spike Lee joint. That was like such a powerful movie. Just an unbelievable cast. Like John Turturro as one of his sons, ended up being one of my like favorite like offbeat, off color character actors. Mm-hmm. And yeah, man, that was like early days even for him and a lot of those guys. And you could just tell that movie was like they didn't know what the fuck they were doing, and they made a masterpiece too. You know, like it felt like raw and real, even in the way they shot those scenes, even the way that the dialogue worked. Like it felt like they were improvising half of it as they were going. Like it really spoke to what ended up being just like a really crisp style for Spike Lee. That's where he tested a lot of different stuff, especially his character dialogue, which I think is important, because for me, my number one is, surprise, surprise, a Quentin Tarantino movie. And Tarantino, Spike Lee, like Tarantino, is just strong with the dialogue. There's so much undercurrent in the dialogue, and there's so much dialogue that they really explore a lot race and a lot of different themes from a lot of different angles in a lot of challenging ways. And so a movie like that, they're looking at the impact of race and neighborhood knuckleheads and all of those interpersonal dynamics, to the point where that place fucking burns to the ground.
Right. And it's like they're both really good at directing the actors to where they can change the dynamic very well in a millisecond. So, for example, in that scene, when they bust in, there's an argument going with some of the like neighborhood kids and Mookie and Sal and his, but it's like, it's not bad. But then things come, when Giancarlo Esposito comes in with Radio Raheem, and so the kids and the other kids in the neighborhood is like Martin Lawrence and them. At first, they're yelling at them like, turn the music off. What are you guys doing? Chill out, be cool. And then the argument between Sal and them starts going sour. And as soon as Sal says the N-word, because Giancarlo's character Bugging Out, that was his name. So once Bugging Out starts calling Sal Italian, I think he calls him the W word or whatever, but starts saying that, then the N drum drops from Sal. And once that drops, you see the shift in all the neighborhood kids who were initially like, y'all chill out. And then they're like, oh, we're N-words now? And then suddenly they're in with everybody else. Yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's powerful stuff. And those two directors have used the N-word maybe more palpably than any directors that I can think of, right? They really, really push the boundaries of that. And it seems like anywhere it is, Sam Jackson is somewhere in the mix, pushing Leonardo DiCaprio. I remember seeing stuff where he was like telling them like, no, you need to drop that word. Like it's second nature. It's like, damn. And Sam Jackson, like, somebody's going to tell you that you need to step up your delivery on a line. You're going to listen. So, all right, like I said, number one for me, I can't get away from a guy, Tarantino, Reservoir Dogs, Mr. Pink, Steve Buscemi. Love that dude. I don't tip. And then what does he say right here? Do you know what this is? It's the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses. This right here. I don't tip. I believe that tipping needs to go away, and it's a horrible practice. ... Everything that I talk about on the side. Right now, today, you don't even tip. You don't consider tipping. I'm walking out after you like Shameless, man.
Yep. That's
just the low of the low right there.
Right.
And so, man, right off the bat, that's why you're Mr. Pink. He goes, sounds like Mr. Pussy. You're fucking right, it does, man.
Right.
Tip. Number one for me, Mr. Pink. I will never forget the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses. All right, that is our top three. That is a really bad list. Really bad list in the best kind of way, because that's what we're looking for. All right, let us know how we did our list. Are there any that you have on your top list of worst diners, worst customers in movie television history? Let us know about yours. All right. Let's get into Bolognese. This episode number 8 from The Bear season 2. We're going to check out a little clip, and then we're going to get into it.
10, 9, 8. I'm grateful for all y'all, my friend.
6.
You can be such a champion.
5. 4. 3. 2. Says here the chief operating officer is Natalie Berzato.
Correct, I am Natalie Berzato.
Congrats, Natalie Berzato. You have a restaurant.
You're honestly the best. You gotta commit. You gotta come in.
All right. We're opening the bear. It's happening. All right, as always, we're going to drop our ratings out of 10 in 3, 2, 1, 7, 2.
8.9.
Yes. All right. I'm going to go first because
Okay.
my rating is wrong when it comes to this episode alone. I'm with you. I probably would have gone about 8.1, 8.2.
Mm.
It's time for me to vent about season 2 because I've been patiently waiting for my girl Tina to get her moments to break through. And where it's episode 8, no matter what they do in episodes 9 and 10, Tina is going to have a lackluster at best, a disappointing season 2. And I'm bummed because we said it from episode 1. That's a character that I wanted to really see and explore. And we're not. We're not going to explore Tina. That's very clear to me. She has a couple extra scenes than ever before. So just for Tina, who also, and then this is total personal, which as I said, my score is wrong. I get it, because this episode was a good episode. And 7.2 is not a horrible score. We've had worse scores, for sure. But even Lisa Colon-Zayas, who plays Tina, and I have been interacting on social media, like love. I am a 6'2" Japanese, Irish, French, American kid from California, but that 5'1" Latina is like my spirit animal on that show and in real life. And so I'm bummed, man. I really wanted to see Tina break out the way we've seen Richie break out. Even we've seen Sydney get a little bit more dimension in this episode or this season, excuse me. So that's what I was bummed on, man.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. And let's get into the actual episode. You tell me why this is an 8.9.
This is an 8.9 because this is like a really, to me, this felt like a very solid episode.
Solid.
There wasn't like a lot, like it was a nice high plateau. There weren't a lot of peaks. There wasn't a lot of like stressful moments other than that moment from the clip. But it was like just a solid, like we got the little bump between Sid and Carmen about the Claire situation. Wasn't as explosive as I thought it was going to be.
It should have been. They can't just do this and then stop the scene.
Yeah.
Come on.
I did think it was going to be a bit more explosive than it was, but we got Ibrahim back, and I remember I put in my notes about the fact that like I'm kind of glad that they didn't, since they decided that they were going to go the route of him not growing and just staying where he is. I'm glad that they didn't focus on him more, because I would have been frustrated if we went through this whole season of having more of him just to see him stay in the same spot. So cool. Focus on the other people and then bring him back. Because I mean, when it's all said and done, there are those people. There are those people that don't want to grow. There's like those old dogs that just they want to come in and do their job. They want to retire in that position. They don't want to grow anymore. They don't want to go any higher. They don't want to go any lower.
Doesn't mean they can't be great. A rock star for you. Solid. Rock solid.
Super solid. So he's gonna be that dude, I feel like. And when you're talking about Tina, I feel like I'm conflicted because yes, I wish that we could have seen more of Tina, but I feel like that means that we're gonna see more of her probably next season. If they don't give us another season, then I'm gonna be highly upset.
You're giving
We can-
them the runway into season 3 on Tina. Fine, I'm not.
Yeah. Okay, that's where. Yeah, y'all get the runway with me. Y'all get the runway with me.
You guys get till season 3 where Tina needs to be elevated. You know, she's got some one-liners, right? When she's got Carmi's knife, that badass folded Damascus steel Japanese style knife, she goes, "Let's fucking go," right? Like, yeah, like I love that energy. She goes and stares down all the cooks as they're standing outside the door for probably way too long. We get it. You're tough, Mama Bear. We got it. We got it. And then she goes, "Let's go, freshman." Right? She's like, you know, trying to give that energy. She gets her new pan. You see that moment where she sees that new shiny pan. So yeah, those are moments that I recognize and really appreciate for movies. And so for sure, like I said, my score was wrong. 8.9 is higher than I would have given it if I just scored that. But I think I took an entire point. I think it's an 8.2. I took an entire point just out of protest, standing in solidarity with Tina, with Liza Colon-Zayas. So I wanted to touch on two things with this. The restaurant now has been greenlit to open. Here's the Hollywood thing about it. You and I opened a lot of restaurants. There's never a moment where the entire team is standing there for a fire suppression test where you then go, "You have a restaurant." They hand you a fucking piece of paper and everyone cheers and slaps each other on the ass. That moment never happens. It does not happen in opening a restaurant.
Right.
So whatever. That feeling, though, that they had, I remember getting your CO, your certificate of occupancy, going down and picking that up, the liquor license. Those are typically the last two things that you're getting in this process. The certificate of occupancy, liquor license. Those are like the day that you're like, okay, now we can really go. We can really start off. Fire department, they do have this power. There's three very, very deadly words to the opening of a restaurant: safety of life. And the fire inspectors say safety of life means you got to put up 4 more fucking exit signs or whatever the hell they tell you. There's nothing that you can do to combat that. So the random fire suppression dude is not that dude. These are legit fire inspectors. And I've done a lot of Ansel system tests and fire suppression tests. I have never seen the used condom version sitting on the end of a shelf. They have a system that gauges the pressure that they attach to. What the fuck was with the balloon? Like, I thought that they were ghetto as hell with everything that was doing, but look at this guy showing up with the blue condom to say this is official. But that feeling of driving to go get your certificate of occupancy, be able to bring the crew in, be able to get that food order in that you've been waiting on, and you're ready to bring that inventory. You've reorganized the shelf so many times. You've put up all the equipment and stuff, and you're just waiting to be able to start training the crew. So that feeling is super real. For you, the opening of the restaurant side, I want to get your insights there, and then I want to touch on this OCD thing that I noticed a little bit, and get into that, because there's a lot of that's trained or inherent in people in the restaurant. So opening a restaurant, what were your thoughts specific in that space?
Similar to you, like just the feeling of like, okay, we're about to do this thing. Like when, like not so much like you said, the lining up, but that feeling when you first turn on your burners, you got a brand new stove, brand new pans, and you turn them on for the first time and you start prepping and like menu planning and all that stuff, and start mise en placing and testing out all. Oh man, that is like a Christmas Day almost.
That is exactly what it's like. It's like running out Christmas morning and seeing all those presents and just ripping them apart. They did a really great job on the sound of chopping on the cutting board. That's like, I don't want whale sounds to fall asleep to. I want chopping of veg, of meat on a cutting board will put me to sleep with a smile on my face. So I like that. The sounds of the blender going and the sounds of turning on the stoves and that when the fire hits. That's why I left that in the clip. I was like, Corey, I want a little bit of that. Just, it was a long clip, but I was like, I want the stove turning on, because that to me was the first thing that I did. I like turned on the stove and I placed cutting boards, like, and those sounds and then you start to have the smells, and it's a very different smell because you've had all of these construction smells. You've had all of these chemical smells. Then you're cleaning up and using way too much cleaner to try to do that. Then you have this weird time where all the sights and sounds and smells that you're used to in a restaurant are there, but you also still have construction sounds. And construction dust is in the air for another month. It's ridiculous. You got to be really, really on top of cleanliness, not leaving product out. Even them leaving the products, like I would put a cover on that speed rack with all the citrus and fruit and stuff because like there's just dust everywhere. So there's this strange smell in starting new restaurant that's like new car meets lived in. And that's this thing that happens in restaurants. So there's that. All right. So this OCD thing, it was really interesting to me. Carmi goes and cuts the tape and says, it's driving me crazy, right? As he's talking to Sydney, and he goes and takes the little bit of tape. And I remember being like that too. Just like, how much tape are we using? Are we using too much tape? Are we cutting it? Does it have clean edges? So many things like that. And then Richie just puts that server on blast. Now our boy Richie goes from being dirtbag to how did she leave that napkin sitting sideways for the entire time? It drove me crazy. Like both of these guys all of a sudden said, you know, that part of it. And that's for real in restaurants. That's 100% for real. I was interested, though. There's certain things about it that I trained myself and others. And there's certain things that I feel like it attracts people that have certain types of compulsion in restaurants. And it can be obsessive compulsive. It also is a lot of people that have compulsions when it comes to drugs and alcohol, which is why we struggle with that. With mental health issues, we struggle with that. And so I'm interested is if those OCDs are superpowers sometimes, the ability to like recognize those things. Are they debilitating? And I'm not sure about that. So I wanted to get your thoughts on it and get this out there on wax so people could also comment on it. I mean, what are your thoughts there?
It's a fine line because there's
fine line.
Pros and cons, and part of that OCD is what makes when you walk into a kitchen and you get the wow factor of like, wow, this kitchen looks incredible. Like it's due to a bunch of those OCD factors. You know, when you walk into a walk-in and all the deli containers are facing front with the cut tape, like there's a wow factor there, right? There's a wow factor there. And if you're not used to that, you know, and you think that, you know, there's a graduation of it where you think that just labeling and tearing tape is fine until you get to the point where you see that and you can't go back once you get to that point.
That's facts. But you can't go back. It's like it all of a sudden it broke you for being like, how was I living before this?
Right. But then on the negative side is for people who aren't used to that and don't live their lives like that, it tends to come off as like micromanaging and nitpicky. And so if you're not of that, then it comes off as more like, dude, really? Like you're making a big deal out of that? Like I could just tear the tape. What's the big deal? Like you're making me grab my knife and pick up my knife to slice the tape rather than just being able to tear. And so like, you know, I can see pros and cons. And so, you know, if you're about it, and there's definitely results that show that there's a reason for it, but there's also people that would argue, okay, but are those results really, you know, and it's like, what takes your restaurant from here to here?
Yeah, and you're right. You're 100% right. And I had way too many of those for myself. I know you saw that in the kitchen where, you know, saute pans on your saute line, all the handles had to be lined up together. They couldn't be like all in different directions. Your sauce wells, all the ladles had to be pointed in the same direction. They all had to be in the back right corner so you could always grab them in the same spot. Spoons had to be pointed the same way. If you didn't cut your blue tape was one thing. That was not as big a deal to me as if you put your delis or containers into the bus stuff for the dishwasher to take and you didn't take your own fucking blue tape off. That's what I lost it on, because I was protecting that dishwasher from having to sit there and peel off blue tape when they're you know, in the weeds. And so that was like those were some of the ticks that I remember very distinctly when I was watching that it did kind of set the hairs on my neck up a little bit seeing that, because I recognized that.
You know what's funny, and it's not super related or incredibly, but when I thought about the napkin test that Richie gave the unwitting server, it made me think of your chive test.
Oh, the chive test. Chive test, world famous. You cut these chives and I'll pay you whatever. I'll offer you a job on the spot and I'll pay you whatever you want. And how many hundred people took that? And I think like 2 people ever passed the test. That was a litmus test. It wasn't even about the cut chives. It was like, do you take care of your cutting board? Do you take care of your knife? Do you take care of your ingredient? Do you ask thoughtful questions? Do you force the ingredient to do what you want it to do? Did you hone your knife? Like all of those things. It was about everything except how well you cut chives, for sure. I didn't like set people up though, like Richie did, of turning the actual knife. I know a lot of people that do that stuff that set you up. I just gave you a very vague instruction and wanted to see where your confidence was. A lot of people were not willing to ask me a question about it. Okay, yes, I got it. I was like, you already think you know what I want out of this. And so there was a lot of those. Yeah, the chive test is that's famous. It's like coming back now. People like hit me up all the time. Remember the chive test? People still send me pictures and DMs of chives cut, either that they cut really well. Sometimes people will send me some fucked up cut chives just to put me on tilt. Just to put me on tilt. My brother does that shit all the time. Oh, this is good. That was a good episode. That was a long episode. That was really something we got to get into because we're at that point. We're getting to the end. We got a lot we want to talk about when it comes to the Bear. Season 2, there's only 2 more episodes coming up, and before we happen.
Wrap up, I got to touch on the fact that Richie was able to humble himself to apologize to Nat. That was huge.
That was powerful.
That was huge. And to like open himself up and make himself vulnerable for, any shit that he got for like, because there's a chance when you're apologizing to people that they're either not going to take your apology or they're going to throw in a couple shots at you that they've been holding back on that you deserved. And so for him to like be willing there and like sitting in that seat in a moment of vulnerability and just being like, admitting like I put myself in situations where I didn't belong there and I made things worse, and like actually saying those things, because we've been talking about that this whole show about how he made shit worse and he would like, because he was scared of being obsolete, and so he was overcompensating by just throwing himself into stuff that he didn't know what he was doing. And so for him to like humble himself, apologize, and then be like, I'm here for whatever you need me to do.
And you could tell at the beginning, she jokingly said, I need somebody to witness this, and calls Sweeps into the meeting.
Yeah.
And then Sweeps is sitting there. And then there's that moment when he's really apologizing. And she goes, oh, wait. And you see her go, oh, wow, this is for real, for real.
Yeah.
And then there was also something that I had quoted where, Sweeps asks him, why are you wearing the suit? He's like, I'm wearing the suit because it makes me feel good about myself. And there was absolutely something, right, where when you are in a restaurant and you cook at that level or whatever it might be, you do feel like you belong. Like all of a sudden us misfit toys have a purpose and something that we're good at. So also when Richie goes up to Carmi and says, I get it. There was also very powerful moments because, this chef coat, it did make me feel like I was a fucking superhero sometimes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I put that thing on and that black chef coat, you and I love those black chef coats. Like we look good.
Right.
And it was, it was the first uniform that we put on where it felt like this is me.
Yeah. I gotta say that like that feeling right there made me struggle with the regression. You know how like, culinary trends change and style trends change.
Yeah, we wear t-shirts and cool
like,
aprons now.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it was a hard transition for me because for me putting that chef coat on meant something, and it was like it meant something that it was something that I earned. And so I feel like the people that are in t-shirts now, it's like they've gotten over it. Like they don't need that anymore. They're cool with being comfortable and having a cool apron and stuff like that. But for people who like start off rough and it's like you're anticipating the moment where you finally get that jacket with your name on it that's made of different cotton than the rough ass one that you get from the linen company at your job. And so finally, like you have a smooth ass chef coat with your name on it. And it's like,
smooth.
Yeah. It makes it hard to like go back to be like, all right, now I'm gonna just rock a t-shirt. Like I can just come in.
Come on, when you're on that like Cottonelle triple ply, you're not gonna go back to some gas station toilet paper, are you? Let's go.
Right,
like I feel you 100%. It was just about, again, calling everybody chef made it feel different than when you finally got that coat with your name on it. It was like your jersey, and your family comes and sees you at the game. They get to see your name on the back of jersey. That makes me think of I'm talking about we can't put their name on the back of their jersey. Their family has come to see them, and they can't have their name on the back of the jersey. I'll pay for the whole SWAC conference to have their names on the back of jersey. I remember Dion Primetime talking about that. I felt the same way. So, oh man, this got us fired up. So, all right, everyone, let us know how we did on this episode. We're coming up on episodes 9 and 10 of season 2 of The Bear. Once again, this was Restaurants in Pop Culture RIP, presented by Squared Sodas. That's it for me and MC.